Senator Susie, we haven't seen you yet, but we've seen a little of your cohorts, a little bit already. And, okay. So this one, yeah, so I non-concur and request a committee conference because there's some money involved here. There was money involved, right?
That's why we didn't concur.
I trying to remember.
We didn't concur because
There was,
it put the China bill into it.
which bill are we doing now? Oh,
358.
okay, 1358.
bill in.
Okay, the China bill, yeah. Do you really, you want to hear why we have a problem with the China bill, or did you get enough of it when, at the public hearing? Okay. Okay, so Representative Spear,
You really want me to go into this?
you're batting 1,000, so keep going.
My background is electronic warfare. I've worked in electronic warfare for 15 years. This bill is not going to stop anything. In the case of one of the problems, when the title of the bill, which has started me right off, if you wanted to say 10 miles around a military base, I thought it was cute, wasn't going to do anything, but if you wanted it, you could have it. Except that the federal government came out with a regulation that said if you're within 100 miles of a military base and if you are from a Chinese company from the mainland China, then you have to ask for permission. And then if you wanted to get the permission, you could, if you got the permission, then they should be allowed. But our bill would say, no, you still couldn't be allowed. So now we're into a lawsuit situation. That was one thing. But if you wanted military bases, we have two. We have the Air National Guard and we have the communications center over in, where is the communication center? The satellite communication in New Boston. Problem with that is 10 miles won't stop any interference with any transmission along that line, along the satellite line. You'd have to be at least 100 miles away to be able to stop that. Companies that work in these kind of industries are required to protect themselves, and they do. If you remember when BAE Systems put their facade on the front, that was a security measure to stop being able to receive by planting a truck out in the parking lot, Doppler information off the windows. Okay, so electronic warfare isn't going to really get affected by this bill. It's not going to stop anything because you can drive a truck right up next to something and take whatever you want. What I'm afraid of, well, we have Syngenta, I guess that's the name of the company in Hill. That is, the agricultural companies told us, agriculturalists said, please don't do anything to stop them. They rely on them. Then we have the logging industry came in and said the Chinese people are one of their biggest customers. Mainland China is one of their biggest customers, and that this bill would stop them from being able to lease property for where they put their logs before they ship them overseas. Then we heard from, at least I did, there are Chinese students here. If they live within 10 miles, if they rented an apartment within 10 miles of a McDonald's or an overhead power line, they would not be allowed to do that. You say in here that in the bill that they can't rent property for any reason at all, whether it's a nonprofit, whether it's anything. And I'm afraid that based on the fact that as a result of the Israel-Gaza war, incidences, anti-Semitic attacks have gone up 140% in this state alone. As a result of COVID, Asian people of all different countries have been attacked all over the country. We have hate groups in this state. We have I don't even want to list them because I don't want to give them that much credit, that are going after people. This is putting a target on the back of every Asian American that lives in this state that says this state is taking exception to you for reasons we have never had a problem, never had a problem. And we've worked well with these people over the years, and now you want to ban everything. And if it was just the military bases, that'd be one thing, but it's everything. Every single industry, power line, restaurant, everything. I think you went a little too far.
Well, I will say, first of all, this has nothing to do with hate groups. This has nothing to do with the Gaza or Israel. And I did talk to the AG's office. The AG's office is actually the one that helped me write this because he was on, the AG did an amicus brief on the Florida bill, which is very similar to this. This does not include leases, and I did forward you an email from, yes, I did. I forwarded the whole committee an email from the AG's office saying, this does not include leases. It does not include personal individuals purchasing property. It's only the entity of the CCP. So when you have one of our biggest adversaries looking to purchase land in this state, to me, if you're not looking at the security aspects of how many Chinese nationals have been coming over the border, which is possible terrorism, then I don't know how to explain your rationale, frankly. We have Congress has actually started putting together legislation against the CCP and purchasing land. So why should we wait until Congress decides to act and start doing something on our own and protect ourselves?
I'd just like to interject for the public's benefit that the original bill wasn't about the CCP. It was about brewing, right? And so there's actually 3 bills that we're discussing all as a packet, right? So
One.
there's also influenza.
No, that,
It's in the title.
yeah, it's in the title, it's not in the bill.
It's not in the bill. Okay, so
That was,
brewing
it was
and
scratched
CCP,
out on one
right.
of my pieces of paper. Right?
I'd just like to offer that my wife is from Hong Kong. She's Chinese heritage. And I share the concern that this might, put a negative light on American citizens who happen to be of Chinese descent. I also acknowledge that this is potentially a real issue. And I think Congress would need to act at a federal level to really solve this problem. So those are my thoughts.
If we wait for Congress to do this, we could be waiting a while. They've had it the past couple of years. They've just introduced a new bill. It's bipartisan, just like the letter from Senator Shaheen to Merrick Garland asking them to look into the CCP-owned properties up in Maine who are marketing black market marijuana.
If you wanted to limit the bill to military bases, but I don't know how that's going to work, or to land being used for marijuana, I wouldn't have any problem. But you're limiting it to everything.
You're right.
If I could
It's
just
not
add,
my,
I
it's
just,
not my committee, it's his.
okay. Can I say something?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. The Florida law, is already being challenged on the basis that, it's discriminatory and it may be a violation of the federal government's supremacy in, deciding foreign, affairs.
And they've done an amicus brief. The New Hampshire Attorney General has done an amicus brief in favor of it. And we have numerous other states. North Dakota has put a ban in.
Don't they have like
Hawaii-
nuclear weapons parked in North Dakota?
It's within 10 miles.
But that's nuclear weapons. We don't have anything like that
Actually,
here.
that's not nuclear weapons. The one in North Dakota is the major communication center for,
Yeah, but you're telling me there's no ICBMs in North Dakota?
I have no idea.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
do.
But the base that they're talking about, excuse me, but the base that they're talking about is one of the major communications for the Air Force.
And if-
Historically, this committee, Commerce, has, whenever there is a open court case or something in question, we generally wait until that has been settled before we pass legislation. So we would say to you is that let the Florida case play itself out and let's see what happens. As far as I know, the People's Republic of China has not purchased anything in New Hampshire as yet.
Actually, that's not necessarily true.
Oh, really? What did they
When I
buy?
was talking to the AG's office, they actually had a school that they were looking to try and purchase.
Oh, the airplane school. The what's the school? It was a flight school that
No, well, it was a school that they were going to use to teach the Chinese children, and it was going to, so that they could say they were taught, they were taught in New Hampshire when actually they were doing Zoom calls. So that was actually turned down, but they did try and purchase it.
they did try. So, but it didn't happen. So, yes, Representative.
So it's my understanding that the company Volvo is owned by, I think it's Geely is the Chinese parent of Volvo. So would we be banning Volvo dealerships from the state?
Well,
And second question, the bill's very complicated. It has lots of items that are pointed out. Why not just make it a blanket ban for the whole state and just keep it simple, if that's your intention? So those two questions, please.
That was written by the AG's office, and I trust what they put together. You have to understand what I said in the committee is if it's a majority owned by the CCP, that entity is actually owned by the CCP, and they are required by their law to do whatever the CCP requires of them. So I don't know how much ownership they have in it. If it's more than 51%, that's considered a CCP organization, and they are required by China law to follow everything that China wants, whether it's spying on us. So.
Yep, keep going.
So the last line says any person who fails to comply with this section shall be guilty of a misdemeanor. Are we potentially making our constituents criminals if they sell their house or their building to a CCP owned company? Wouldn't they be responsible for the misdemeanor violation?
Well, I'm not sure any of our residents would want to sell to the entity of CCP, but this does not include, according to the AG's office, if Joe Blow on Main Street in Hampstead wanted to sell their house, as we had brought up in the committee, if they wanted to let's say it was a Chinese parent who had a child going to Phillips Exeter, and they wanted to purchase, there's no ban on that. They are allowed to, there would be no problem with that.
Unless the parents are employed by the CCP.
It's an individual purchase.
How do you separate an individual purchase if you just said that it's obligated of every Chinese citizen to be controlled by the CCP?
It says any company or development owned or controlled by a company that is owned in whole or in part by or is a subsidiary of a company owned by the People's Republic of China. They are not owned by the CCP.
The sentence further goes on to say, or whose principal place of business is located within the People's Republic of China. It may not have anything to do with the CCP. It may be just whatever, but what it says is the Communist Party, whatever, or principal place of business is located within the People's Republic of China, shall not own, lease, possess, or exercise.
And again, if you look at the very first part of that, it says any company or development owned by the CCP.
Or whose principal place of business is located. I don't see
So
a comma
person-
or an exclamation
A
point
person
in
who
there.
purchases a home, their business, we don't know where their business is.
Could be anywhere.
Exactly. So if if an individual themselves wants to purchase a home, there's no, the AG has no, it says there's no stopping them from doing that.
I have a comment on that if I could. If you look at what's gone on in Florida, and this points back to what Representative Ammon was saying, the unintended consequence of this is that people, and there was a example of this in the New York Times, a young woman from China, her parents were helping her to buy a condo. She was turned down because of the fear from the realtors and people selling that they could be in trouble from this bill. So I think that's an unintended consequence that came up a lot in our hearing from we heard from somebody on our group who has a realty firm, very concerned about that.
And again, the AG said there should be no concern about that.
Well, it's happening in Florida.
That's this current AG. Never know with the next AG.
Could we like stop up to the original underlying bill and just talk about the merits of passing that on its own?
Yes.
We're in support of the underlying bill.
Great.
If we don't have an agreement on China, bill's dead.
Okay, that bill's dead. And here's the reason. Here's
Yes,
here's
what
the
I'd
reason.
suggest
Yes. Okay.
Is that since you're the ones that are raising all the concerns, with the language that Senator Birdsall had the Attorney General's office
Right.
write,
Correct.
that you identify those concerns, work with the Attorney General's office, and get back to us.
Okay.
If the answer is no,
Right.
then the answer is no.
Okay. So here's where I'm at with this, and that is we already had a House bill that was of the same subject matter, and the Commerce Committee unanimously killed the bill. Here comes this bill. Unanimously kill the bill. As the chairman, I can only say is it would be incredibly irresponsible for me to suddenly come up with something to make it work when my committee has said unequivocally that we don't want to pass this kind of legislation.
Because of
So-
specious arguments.
Exactly. It's all a specious argument. You know why I don't like this bill? Because it's totally xenophobic to me. Okay? And I always thought xenophobic was only China. Then I realized that no, the word was supposed to be for anything foreign. Okay? I learned that in college. But no, the idea that we are going to pick out one country and say, I mean, frankly, I'm more worried about Russians than I am about Chinese. But I understand that today it's China. But frankly, I don't want to say to any New Hampshire citizen that you can't go into some deal, you can't do it. You got to spend extra money. You got to do something to try to find out whether the sale is legitimate, whether this is, no, it's just insane.
That's ridiculous.
Personal opinion, I am ridiculous. And I think this
Apparently.
bill is ridiculous. Is that on the mic? Is that on YouTube? Yes. I think the idea of this kind of legislation is ridiculous. And
Well, if
there's
you're
no
not in-
way
if
I
you're
could.
not interested in protecting our residents. then
I
think
believe
you're
our
sorry.
residents are very capable of protecting themselves, and they will not sell to the People's Republic of China,
I'll
period.
remember that when Pop passes.
Okay, all right. Hold me to it. Hold me to it. But I just don't, I think the bill is ridiculous. I thought it was ridiculous on the House side, and fortunately my committee agreed that
Yeah,
they all
you talked to the
unanimously.
people in North Dakota who are now living next to that facility.
No, that facility
about
was kicked
South
out.
Carolina?
The facility was kicked out
It was.
by the federal government. And our law would have been in conflict with that because they said they can't be within 100 miles of it. And you're saying only 10 miles. So the fact is already we're in a conflict
No,
with the
they
feds.
weren't kicked out. They couldn't sell the property. The Chinese could not, they realized that they weren't going to be able to work it, so they tried to sell it.
Well, yeah, because they couldn't be there.
Is South Carolina, is it the one, isn't it South Carolina where they sold something to China that was a big issue?
I don't know.
No, it was South Carolina. Didn't they, that big development there? This is what they used against Nikki Haley, that she was okay about some sale. So was that
DeSantis.
was that a CCC ownership?
I don't know.
So in other words, if they had that law, would that deal not gone through? When they thought it was economic development to the state?
I'm sure they don't feel that way now that the balloon went over their territory.
This law is not going to stop the balloons. You know that.
I like the balloons that are going north to Korea, sending over to South Korea. So at any rate, yes, it would be very unfortunate, but I can already see the headline today is that the Senate kills a perfectly good, important liquor bill that's housekeeping. It's got lots of good stuff in it, let alone dealing with hookah bars, and killed it because you were going to fall on your swords over this Chinese bill that I do think is ridiculous, and I hope they put it in the newspaper that I said it was
Yeah,
ridiculous.
well, if you want to fight the narratives, we'll win hands down every day on restricting the Communist Party of China in owning real estate in New Hampshire. Good luck with that.
Okay.
If the bill just did that in a very narrow sense, exactly the words you said, it would be okay. That's not what this does.
And I just told you, if you have concerns with the bill, then come back to us with amendments that might fix those
Okay.
concerns.
The problem I have is how do I prove that it was the CCCP entity? How do I know that? I mean, everybody knows that if you're going to, right now, all these Hollywood stars, when they buy property, they have a front that does it. You don't even know who the real owner is. How are we ever going to know whether the CCCP, unless they actually came out and said? So if you want the limit, the bill that says is that the CCCP is asking to buy a piece of land in the state of New Hampshire. If you want to narrow it down to is the actual government, would they actually be stupid enough to do that? So if you're asking that, is that what you want in the amendment? Sure, I'll strip it all out. I don't want all that crap. All I'll just simply say is the CCCP is not allowed to buy anything in New Hampshire. Does that work for you?
One of the problems we have is they are also one of our largest trading partners. And they're trying to normalize relationships right now. We're stepping in the world of foreign policy here that we just don't seem to have any strong basis for getting involved in. We're not foreign policy experts. We're not any of that stuff. We're just overreaching. And we're putting citizens at risk.
So let me ask you, Mr. President, you would, if we had the bill one sentence, the CCCP is barred from buying anything in New Hampshire.
We take that under consideration. I don't think it works, but we'll at least listen. You basically said no.
I'm saying no. I'm
bring it up again. So
I just
I
the
have
idea.
asked you to propose changes to this that you could live with.
We're putting
Okay, I have a hard no here. So
we're putting a target on the back of every Asian person in the state by saying that they are a target of this bill, just as it has worked in so many other situations. I'm not prepared to do that.
so I guess it's a no. We would hope that you guys would accede to the House version of the bill, and that I hear you. This might not be the only one today or this week, but we're not ready to pass this legislation. And like I say, is if we find that the Florida one is upheld and there's language that gets upheld in the courts, then I would probably feel differently about it. But that would not be this year. Right. Well, if we all agreed, but we have one hard no here.
Don't.
And I'm a hard no too.
I'm
Oh, okay.
I'm a hard no.
We're three hard no's. We're three hard no's. We're three hard. We just not this year. Someday in the future, once we find out the Chinese are really out to buy up land in New England. So. You want to schedule another meeting to take a vote or handle this, or how would you want to? How would you like to go forward?
Entertain Entertain any positive suggestions that you might have on section 10 and 11 of the bill. Absent that, and we'd be happy to come back in a couple of days. Absent that, I don't know where we.
How about we set up a study committee to figure out what would be the appropriate language to have in our statute?
I don't think that would satisfy the Senate.
You like study committees?
What's that? They're,
That's what I said.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, John Tudor said it.
I think it's a good conversation. I think it's a good conversation that we're having. I don't know if we found a solution yet.
I think part of the problem I'm having is I don't know what the problem is we're trying to solve. It sounds like, well, just kick them all out. Are we worried about espionage? Are we worried about pot, buying up land to sell illegal black market pot? Are we worried about kids beating up on American buildings, which they already do? Are we talking about students whose parents work for some company in China, not being allowed to live anywhere near a McDonald's? What is the problem, specific problem that we're trying to address here? Not some general thing, but a really pointed idea of what the problem is.
I think we are concerned about the national security implications of the Communist Party of China owning property within a close proximity of a military base. That is
if
the
this-
bottom line concern that we
Okay,
have.
if you do that and you broaden it out to 100 miles so it don't conflict with the federal government, I don't think I'd have a problem with it. If you said just those words, I wouldn't have a problem with it.
But what I'm suggesting is, since you're the ones that have raised the problem, come back with a proposal that we can think about. Work with the Attorney General's office, and we'd be happy to entertain it.
You want to write something up?
I would write it up 100 miles within a military base. The problem is that two of the biggest military bases that we're near don't even belong in the state.
Well, we have one, but we don't know what it is. Secret.
Want
You
to do
do?
Boston?
No, the
Portsmouth Naval Shipyard is technically in Maine, but,
It's in Maine, and Hanscom, of course, is in Massachusetts.
Right.
And Hanscom
but it can
no,
be
I was
written in
talking about
such a way
I was
that,
talking about the Space Force.
That's the communications. You gotta be,
You
gotta
also-
be pretty far away to, that's spread spectrum. It's not gonna be that vulnerable.
You have to also understand that the National Guard is not considered a military base. That's why we had to add the National Guard in there, because it's not included in the military base.
You wanna throw in the National Guard, and it would be very interesting to see if the CCP could even buy land around there, because that's outside of Portsmouth.
Well, no, you've got 3 or 4 different National Guard facilities around the country, and if you're going to do 100 miles around, you've pretty much covered the whole state.
Fine, you wanna protect against military organizations, but it has to be the same way the feds do. It can't conflict with the feds. They ask for permission. If they get the permission because the business is a golf business, because that's what somebody wants to invest in, something different.
Yeah. What happens if they want to buy a golf course?
And they do.
You're going to be worried about the CCCP and owning a golf course? Okay, it's too bad. I feel sorry for the commission, and I feel sorry that they were trying to solve this hookah problem, but we're not. No, you don't want. You don't want. Do you want to do something?
No.
Sorry.
okay?
The next bill's still in here, right?
Yep. Okay. Since we have these other two issues rescheduled for another time, and unless you have changed your heart on any of this, you guys have any feelings one way or the other and where we're going with them?
Well, I think maybe,
You're a very sensitive guy, Kevin.
yes, he is. Since we're working on 354 and 555, why don't we recess this until we get a solution on those?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
So, so those are, one we did, the 4th, and is the other one on the
Are you gonna be here
5th? 407? Which one's for, oh, that's the ambulance one. So but the two bills we just did. the two-
354 and 555.
Right, so we, and.
Can
so
we
when-
do Thursday morning?
What did we do, yeah, we got, yeah, Thursday morning. Thursday morning or,
There's a Wednesday.
no, I have 5 is Wednesday
I know,
morning.
but Senator Avar is going to be away on Wednesday, so
So you want to do Senate Bill 555 on the 5th? Yeah,
do-
yeah, that's Wednesday,
no, we got 555 is going to be tomorrow.
tomorrow. Okay,
And 354 is actually tomorrow as well at 11:30. So we'll have hopefully those settled.
had settled.
um,
Okay. So when do you want to take up this one? Push it to Wednesday?
Okay, I just got the clue that I can do it without him on Wednesday if you want.
And Wednesday, we have, I have 10. We did this one at 11. You want to do this at 11:30? Or is that the
I
ambulance
have
one?
one at 11 and one at noon.
Right, I have noon also. I think we're both on that
Why don't
one.
we do one? Can we
Okay.
do one?
1 p.m.
Okay.
And this is June 5th. And this is House Bill,
1380?
what's the number?
1380
1380. Okay.
at 1
Okay.
in this room?
What's that?
In this room?
In this room.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
I'll call him.
1380, 1 p.m. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So we are now in recessed until June 5th at 1 p.m. in this room.
Awesome. Thank you.